Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We generally do a couple of webinars a month. Sometimes these are overviews of ClubExpress, which are geared to people that are either very new to ClubExpress or considering ClubExpress as an association management solution. And sometimes, like today, we're going to drill down on the particular modules, particular bits of functionality. And then we also do webinars that are sort of role-based. Samantha did one recently for ClubExpress for membership directors or ClubExpress for communications directors. And in 2 weeks from today, she'll be doing one, ClubExpress for treasurers. So today we're going to be talking about directories. Before we do so, let's take care of a little bit of housekeeping. All of the phones and microphones are muted, so if you have questions, please enter them into the chat window, and Samantha will do her best to answer some of them, and we will revisit any questions that have not been answered during the demo at the end of the demonstration. And this is particularly useful for people that will be viewing this as a recording. All of our recordings are available, whether they be tutorials or webinars, if you go to the clubexpress.com Cool Stuff page. So if you click on Cool Stuff, and then you click on the Webinars tab at the lower left corner, you will see the upcoming webinar schedule. And then there will also be a list of recently recorded webinars. Above the Webinars tab, there's a Video Tutorials tab, so you can take a look at the recent video tutorials. And all of our videos are actually housed on YouTube, so they're very easy to find. They're accessible from the help system or from YouTube directly. And if you're on one of our videos, you can click on the subscribe button and optionally on the bell icon so that you can be notified when there's any new content that we have published. And finally, if you are using ClubExpress, and particularly if ClubExpress is working really well for you, we'd appreciate it if you would go to clubexpress.com/reviews, click on one of these review sites, and leave a review so people that are evaluating association management solutions can have the benefit of your experience and how it's working for your club. So much for the housekeeping. Today we're going to be talking about directories. There are a couple of different ways that people can search for your members. This is really there so that your members can connect with each other, or maybe the public needs to find some of your members because they provide specific services. So there are two main ways of doing this and an optional third way. The member directory is all about your members, and it allows searching for your members of your organization and viewing information, but only the information that the member wants to make available in the directory. So this directory is usually done as member to member. This is generally not put on the public side of the website. Even if somebody has the URL to the page, if they're not logged in, it is going to ask them to log in. So this is usually placed on a menu choice where the menu is only shown to members, but it could be any place that you want to surface the link, but generally it's made available only when people are logged in. The business directory, on the other hand, is a separate directory. It's a fairly new thing for us that allows your organization to display a directory that's usually put on the public side of the website. So this is really designed for things like the chambers of commerce, trade associations, and things like that, that really want to share information with the public. How can the public find your members that provide certain services? And this is typically accessed either from a menu choice on the public menu. Of course, it could also be on the member menu, but it could be a link on the home page or any place where you could place a link, like a custom page or an email. And one thing that people don't really know about ClubExpress too much is that ClubExpress actually does a lot of custom modules for some of our customers. So we've also created what we call them customized directories for organizations that require special fields. And I'll show you an example of one in a couple of moments. And so if you need to do this, then there's a charge for it depending on how complex it is. But if you need to do this, contact ClubExpress to discuss your requirements and see if this is something that you actually want to have built. So today we're going to be demonstrating a couple of things. We're going to be focusing on the member directory and the business directory. And we're going to view the directory, show how members update their directory entry, and then we'll show how administrators and coordinators configure the directory. We are logged into one of our demo clubs. It's the Northwest Balloon Club. This club doesn't really exist, but we use this for a lot of our demonstrations. And so don't be surprised if there's a lot of junk data in it. But we are currently logged in as Martin Smith. Martin Smith happens to be an administrator. We can see that the members directory has been placed on the members only menu, and the business directory has also been placed on the menu. If somebody wasn't logged in, the members only directory wouldn't show, but the business directory would show. Let's just take a look very briefly at the standard member directory and the business directory. So this is the standard member directory. See, it's the standard member directory here. I typically just call it the member directory. And there's a search box, and you can show and hide the search. You can search for text by member name or the company they work for. There are a bunch of different fields. You can specify people that have particular interests. You can specify if you have chapters and districts and regions and such, you can specify which chapter. You can specify members that have joined within a particular amount of time, the country, the state. And in this case, we said, oh, let's show all members that are within 20 miles of a zip code. This shows a map showing all of the people that are on this result page. And that's important. It's not all the people that are within that area, but it's just showing on this map the people that happen to be on this result page. And you can have up to 30 people on a result page. So it's not everybody, it's all the people that are showing up on this page of results. And if there are more than 30, you can page through the results. As you hover over each one, it shows who they are. And if there's more than one, like here, you can click on it and look at a particular person, and it'll give you the information about that person. You can also use Control Zoom to zoom in and out. And we have cards for all of the people that are in the result set, in this case, within 20 miles of a particular zip code. And we have cards for each of them, and the cards will only show the information that people say they want to be able to see. Now, I'm an administrator. I'm logged in as Martin Smith, so I get to see pretty much everything. And you'll notice that Martin has a couple of different icons at the bottom of his screen. There's a V card, which is a virtual contact card, which if you click on this, it will download the V card, and then you could open it and add it to your contact management program, which is typically an email program or some other contact management program. If Martin has configured social media links, they'll show up here. And if Martin has a website, it will show up here. So that's the member directory. The business directory, in this particular demo club, we only have a couple of businesses, and they all happen to be within a particular area. So we'll see that Martin has a company called Hoffman Gifts and Flowers, and there's a little description here. And if we click on it, we'll find more information about the company. And you'll see that there are a couple of different categories. So this one is arts, crafts, and collectibles. And then within that, there's an antiques business type. And then there's a business-to-business category and consulting services. And then there's gifts and flowers. And so Martin's company is listed here too, because it's in more than one category. And so there's just a few here. And when you click on Hoffman Gifts and Flowers, we will see information about Hoffman Gifts and Flowers. And we'll come back to this a little bit. By the way, if I go back to the membership directory, and if I click, say, on Martin, if I click on his picture on his name, we get details about Martin, the information that he wants to publish, whatever personal information, biography, social networking links, blogs, interests, things like that. So we'll talk about how we configure all of this stuff. But the thing about these directories is that your members actually update them. You as administrators can update them, but generally it's up to your members to update them. So I'm going to go in and show you how this particular member would update his member directory and business directory. So this is all done via the profile. So Martin would come up to his name, click on Profile, and you'll see that there are two links here, one for the standard member directory and one for the business directory. So if I click on this, there's a couple of interesting things here. One is Martin gets to decide what visibility he wants in the directory. So we could say, I want you to show all the information except for the email, or most of the information but no address, or most of the information, no address or the work info, or no address, work info, or phone, or just do my city, state, and bio, but no contact information, or even a little more restrictive, or don't list me in the directory at all. Now, this list is based on whether or not the administrators, when they configured this module, if they have given the members the option to limit the information, because some organizations say, no, you have to be able to show everything in your directory. And again, it's up to the organization. And the organization can say, okay, we're going to let you change it, but we want a default. So when a new member comes in, they don't have to choose one. We'll choose one for you, and they can always override it. The next couple of fields here have to do with social networking. So if you've got LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or whatever, you can put in your links here. And if you put in the links here, that's where they show up on those icons on that previous page. You have biography, which is much the same as any other content editor field here. You can put in your own information. You can, if you want, you can highlight it. You can change the color, all that stuff. You can add photos. You can create links to web pages. This is what would show on what's called the bio page. And then here is where you select your photo, your avatar. And you just browse to it on your disk. Try to use a small photo. It'll resize anyway, but try to use a small photo if possible. ClubExpress actually provides for two photos. This is the photo for your profile, but you can have a separate and different photo for forum posts, and that's configured in your forum preferences. So the forum messages can have an entirely different photo than your general profile photo. So this is where the member updates their information. Now, if we go back to the member profile and I go to the business directory, it's similar, where this is the company that Martin has, and you have the business name. And really the only two things you need to select are the business name and the business category and type. So if I looked over here and I said, okay, this is going to be for, they also sell books and magazines. And I come over here and I said, oh, because this is a gift shop, they're going to use rare and used books. As soon as I choose a business type, it lets me add that business type. Because right now, Martin's business is only listed arts, crafts, and collectibles in the antiques type and gifts and flowers in the florist type. So if I add this here, it's saying that you're allowed up to 5 listings, because that's something that the administrators had set up, and saying, okay, you can pick 2 more if you want. And then, of course, you've got all of the general business information, contact, things like that. If you put in your address, you can refresh the geocode so that it will show up on the map properly. You've got the email, you've got the website for your business. Similarly, you've got social media links for your business. In this case, the administrators have enabled 2 fields. One is called languages spoken, which could be really useful in many communities, so let them know what languages your business can handle. And if there are any special offers. So we put in here 5% discount when you show your Northwest Balloon Club member card. And so these fields will show up here so that Martin or any other business directory listing can show that information. The show in directory determines whether or not you want to show it at all. You can have your logo or image. And you see I have a little, what's it called? Hoffman Gifts. And I put a little flower in here. And then, of course, you've got the description is like the bio. And you can have as much information that you want as possible. You can have photos. You can have a picture of the front of your store. It could be anything that you want, and links and things like that. So if I now go to the business directory and I look at Hoffman Gifts and Flowers, you'll see they're in the arts, crafts, and collectibles, antiques. They're in the florist, and now they're in the books and magazines, rare and used books. Now, these are also links. So I could click on this and show a list of all the people that are in this category, or all the people that are in this type within the category. So you could find, let me see all my florists, for example, or all the people that are into gifts and flowers. At the moment, we only have a couple in here, so it's not all that useful. But here you'll see languages spoken, about our business, and the special offers. So that's a very brief overview of what these directories look like. Samantha, are there any questions so far?
Just a couple of questions. If a member hides their email address from listing in a directory, does that mean that their email address is just gone from their record forever and they won't receive email communications?
No, that simply means that it's not shown in the directory. But not only is it not shown in the directory, but if you downloaded a V card, let me go back here to the membership directory. And if I download, say, Martin's V card, and if I open the V card, it will also, when it populates the V card, it will also only show the information that would have been shown in the directory. If you do not want to be included in emails, that's different. That's over here in the privacy section, privacy, cancel, remove. And over here, you get to decide whether or not you want to receive emails from the Northwest Balloon Club. And this will only be for what's referred to as blast emails. You will still get things like renewal notices. You'll still get system generated confirmations, things like that. But you won't get a newsletter that's sent out as a blast email. So those two things are independent. So let's talk about how you set these things up. And so the way this is done is to go into the control panel. Let's take a look at the member directory first. So if you go to the People tab in the control panel, and you go to the standard member directory, there's a bunch of options here. So the first one is the one that was one of the first things that you saw on the profile screen, is what is the policy about, do we allow members to limit the information shown in the member directory, including whether or not they can opt out entirely. In this case, we're saying, yes, you're going to present that to the members. The members can decide what they want to show. And what you do is you also can set the default visibility for new members. So when you add a member or they add themselves, what should it be? So maybe you want it to be show all the information, but don't show the email, or any one of these things, or maybe don't list them in the directory unless they decide they want to be listed in the directory. So this is the default. It doesn't change anybody's existing information, but this is what it primes their record with when they first come into the organization. You can also decide whether or not you want to show the member's birthday, or the spouse's birthday, or the member's wedding anniversary, and whether or not you show the year for the birthday and anniversary. I don't know that I've actually ever seen this one checked, because it's nice to know that somebody's got a birthday on a particular day, but nobody particularly wants to know just how old they are. Now, there is a report, which is kind of interesting. If we just go back up to the control panel for a moment, and we go into reports, and under membership info, there is a report called birthdays and anniversaries. So you can actually get a list of birthdays and anniversaries, because maybe you want to send out emails to people and such, or have birthday parties or whatever, or make a little list of all the people that have birthdays in a particular month and such. So let's go back into standard member directory. You decide whether or not you want to enable the social networking links, and that's the fields that give you the Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter links. You decide whether or not you want to display the map at all. And then you get to decide what kind of search options you want to have show up in the search panel. Do you want to let them search by interests? Do you want to let them search by metro area? Some clubs have, different metropolitan areas enabled. Should they be allowed to search by chapter or by state or city? So you can turn these on or off as necessary. And you can also decide whether or not you want to show secondary and tertiary members in the results. For those of you new to ClubExpress, the primary member is the member who sort of owns the account. Secondary member is another full member that could be a spouse or a partner or such, but they don't manage the account, meaning they're not going to be the ones responsible for paying for the account. So they're just considered a secondary member within the primary member's account. They've got their own login. They can do everything that a primary member can do, except they do not manage the account. They don't decide who other secondary members are. They don't decide anything from administering the account. Tertiary members are very often kids. These are people that you want to be able to invite to events, and you want to be able to mail to them that they're members, but they don't have a login. They can't log into the website. But if you were signing up, say, for an event, and you say, I want to go to this ski event for myself and my wife and two of my kids, all the names would show up, and you'd be able to have the right waivers and all those things that you might set up for a ski trip. Also, so that you know how this works, secondary members are charged by ClubExpress at half the rate of a primary member. And tertiary members, since they can't log in, aren't charged at all. So you can have as many tertiary members as you need without incurring any fees for them. There's a relatively new type of membership called a business membership, where you have somebody who owns the membership and then they have other people that are in their business, which is really useful for like chambers of commerce and such, where you have a business that might have a couple of different locations and you have somebody who owns the business and saying, well, these secondary members are the managers of each of the stores. So secondary members in a business account are treated much like spouses and partners in a non-business account. So these are the standard member directory options here. And again, if we come over to the membership directory, you'll see that here's where we have the search panel, and these are the fields that we said it was okay to search on. We said we want to display the map. We said we wanted to display the social networking links, and we also are allowing interests. And on the bio page, you can see the blogs, you can see any collectibles that Martin has. So this is a good way for your members to get to know one another. This is really a member-to-member directory. So now let's take a look at configuring the business directory. Now, the business directory actually has two different options for viewing. What you saw a moment ago in the business directory is you saw the results in cards. That can be changed, if I want, to a list. And if I change that to list, and we go back to the business directory, so now it's in a list view rather than in a card view. So you have a little option there. And so what we have is, if we can go into manage the business directory either by going to the control panel, or because I'm an administrator, I can come over here to the Page Tools widget and just click on Edit, and that will bring us directly into the business category administration. So we'll get to the options in a moment, but there are a whole bunch of predefined system business categories, like arts and crafts and collectibles and babies and such. And if I don't want to use the system categories, I can turn off the system categories here, so it won't show them. There's another option as to whether or not we want to use them at all. But these are the ones that the administrators here have decided these are our business categories. If I show all the categories, including the system, Now we see everything. For anything that's not a system category, you can edit them. So this one's called balloon suppliers. You could change the name of it. And for the categories that are not system categories, you can delete them. And for any of the categories, you've got the business types within that category. So if I come over here and I click on business types for arts, crafts, and collectibles, you'll see that these are all system types. You'll see there's no edit icons. And so if we come over here, I can make a new one in this category, and we'll call this Digital Processing Lab. If I save that, now it shows up here, and I can edit the name of it, and I can delete it. Now, one thing I do want to point out to you is these numbers here, 2000, 2001, 2002, these are the IDs of these particular business types, and we'll come back to why that's important in a moment. If I come up to business category administration, you'll notice the categories also have numbers, and you'll see why that's important in a moment. So these are the categories that your members can pick from when they say, I've got a business, I want to be able to say that my business falls into these categories. And you can add a category here, much like you could add a type. There are reports by clicking on report, businesses by category, business by type, business listings. You can export a list of all of your categories and businesses, and they go out as a spreadsheet. You could view it in Excel or in a database program. And then the options are here. You need a singular keyword for the business, because the business might not be called business. It could be called anything. As a matter of fact, both the member directory and the business directory, along with virtually all of the other modules in ClubExpress, can be renamed. It doesn't have to be called business directory. It could be called professional directory. It could be called professional members. It could be a chamber of commerce. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be called. The module doesn't have to be called this, and it doesn't have to be called this on the menu. And so Samantha would just remind me when we're done looking at this screen to show people how we change that in the control panel configuration.
Will do.
All right. So we have the results format. Do we want to show the map and the results? Do we want to use system categories at all? Because maybe you really only want your members to choose from the 10 categories that you set up. I saw something the other day where we had a business type was veterinarian who sees bees. And that was a pretty specific type of doctor, veterinary, and veterinarian who sees bees. Do we want to show the languages spoken field? Do we want to show the additional member data? Now, additional member data and this next one, show interests. I was a little confused about this as to why that would be here at all, because this really is data about the member and not so much about the member's business. And the reason for it is that there are some organizations that really don't want to use the member directory. They want to do everything with one directory, and they want to use the business directory. Maybe it's a chamber of commerce, and that's not going to be their primary directory. They don't want to have two directories. And so in this case, you can opt to show the additional member data. The additional member data is things like how long have you been into ballooning, or what's your favorite color, or whatever, and whether or not you show the interests on the business directory screen. Typically, these are turned off, but that's the reason why they showed up there before. You decide how many categories a business can be in. You decide what the radius choice should be. If you're a local organization, maybe you only want to have a radius of 20 miles or 50 miles. If you're a nationwide organization, maybe you want to have it 1,000 miles. And then you can also decide which kinds of member types can enter data about their business. So you might say, we have a type here that we don't want people that are family memberships to go into the business directory, or we only want the business memberships to go into the directory, or we only want our life members or our gold members or whatever. You decide what business types are allowed go into the directory. And if they're not in that business type, when they go into their profile, they won't see the business directory shown. All right, so now let's go into the control panel because I want to show you the things about visibility. In the People tab, and the control panel was reworked a couple of months ago, and we have a new tutorial about how this works. It's been simplified. It's much neater now. It makes better use of screen real estate. So in order to change, say, the visibility of the standard member directory, what you would do here is we would click on Configure. So this is going to configure the items in the People tab. So if I click on Configure and I come over here to the standard member directory and click on standard member directory, you will see that its status is active. The function name, the original function name is called the standard member directory. If I wanted to just be called the member directory or our members or member list or roster, you could change it here. And you can change what appears on the menu. So if I wanted to change this here, let me just copy this to our members. And we're going to change this to roster. You'll see also that I said that this visibility is set to members only. So even if someone has the URL of the page, they won't be able to get to it until they log in. So if I save this and I close this and I come here to members, you'll see the menu choice has been changed to roster. And when I click on it, it no longer says standard member directory, it says our members. So you can rename these things as is appropriate. Now, one of the reasons why this is useful is because you may be using it not as kind of a standard member directory. You may be using it as a chamber of commerce. So you would say chamber members instead of business directory. Now, I mentioned something earlier about custom directories. Maybe you need something in addition. So I'm going to show you this picture here. And this is from one of our organizations. And they have a way for the public to find psychologists that have particular specialties. So you could find a psychologist and you say, oh, I know the psychologist's name is Mary. So you'd be able to pick Mary. Or I'm looking for a female psychologist. Or I'm looking for someone that takes evening hours or has different kinds of treatment approaches or areas of practice or insurance carriers, any of these things. So these were all developed for that organization as a custom directory. And when people click on these and you know, it's got pull down lists for you to manage all the data on this. And then people can search for your members who provide these services. This is what's referred to as a custom directory or a custom finder. So if you need something like this for your organization, ClubExpress is happy to develop something like that for you and we'll give you an estimate of the costs. Before I go into a little bit advanced topic, Samantha, do we have any questions?
We actually have one question that completely stumped me. So the question was, if when the original website was activated and the directory was activated, if the club made a mistaken initial setup and hid addresses for the members, if they switch the setting to show all information, does that change take effect retroactively and automatically populate the directory listings?
No, it does not, and it should not. This is a default for members as they are added to the organization. So no, you wouldn't want that to happen because people would say, no, you're now switching to something else and I don't want that. You see, and I'm very specific. I don't want to be in the directory. Or the only thing that would happen is if you turned off the ability for people to customize their directory entry, if you're not giving them the option to opt out, they wouldn't be able to opt out. But if you're giving them the option, this really is only for new members, people that are added from the time that you changed the default, because you could have had a particular default for a certain time. Now I'm changing the default. Okay, now any members going forward are going to get this new default. It's just a way of priming their record If they never visit their profile, it'll just be the default. And if they do visit their profile, there's something there rather than nothing. So no, it doesn't change it, nor should it. So there are a couple of very interesting things here. There are a couple of ways of you creating a URL that will load a directory with a couple of fields already selected. For example, and this is really for advanced users. So, for example, you want a URL that when you click this URL, it searches for members in a particular special interest group. Or you might want to say, show all members that are in a particular chapter. And the way you would do this is by following the instructions here, where you're going to have the URL of the club and the page ID and the club ID. That's just the general link. And then you append to it the question mark. You have the page ID, the club ID, and the interest ID or the subgroup ID. And just as I showed you before on the business directory, where you have an ID for each of the categories and business types, you have IDs for each interest and each subcategory. And so you have a similar thing for the business directories. And with the business directory, you can have a cat where you put in the category ID. So that's a business category. You can have specify the business type and the zip code and the radius on the zip code. This is similar to what you can do with the events. You can create a URL that will show all events of a particular type. In a theater that I belong to, we say, I want to show on my event calendar, I want to make a URL that when you click on this, it only shows auditions, or it only shows member meetings, or it shows everything except for auditions, or it shows everything except for member meetings. And so you can create these and then put them into a menu so that you can pre-filter the list of events. You can do a similar kind of thing here for filtering for different types of business or standard directories. So that's, I think, pretty much what I wanted to show here. Let's see if there are any other questions that are coming in.
One of the questions that I've had come up a lot is they don't see the directories listed in their control panel, how to activate it, and then where you change the name of a directory within the control panel.
Sure. So the control panel, I'll click here. Both of the directories are on the People tab. You'll notice that we call this our members at the moment, and it's now no longer called Standard Directory. There are two things, just for people that are new to the revised control panel, that I am in what's called edit mode, where it says switch to view mode. So if I click on our members, it's going to bring me to the management area. If I come back here and I click switch to view mode and I click on our members, it's going to take me to the members directory itself. So the difference between viewing and administering. The way you configure all of these things is by clicking on the configure icon at the top here, and then you pick the module. And right now, remember, we renamed this to our members. I'm going to name it back to the standard member directory. So this is the actual name of the module. This is what I want to call it when I'm seeing it on the control panel. And then the menu text could be different. And then you have this thing here that says who can view it. There's also a really cool thing is that we could just call this members. If I make this quick link called members, I could do democlub.clubexpress/members, and that is the shortcut. That will then make a shortcut to the page entirely. I'm not going to do that at the moment. So that gives you a fairly short URL, or if the name of the club is, myclub.com, this would be myclub.com/members and would take you directly to that page rather than having to navigate or using a URL that's got, the club ID and all that stuff. So what happens here is you save this And it doesn't close because maybe you want to go mess with something else. Now, if I didn't want the member directory enabled at all, there are three things that you can do. It can be active, which means it shows up on the menus, it shows up in the control panel, it's ready for use. Inactive means that it shows up at the control panel, it's not available for use, but you can still configure it here. If I choose it as disabled and hidden, well, in fact, let me just make it active and let's close this for a minute, and you'll see standard member directory shows back up here. If I come back in here and choose that it is hidden, and I save it, and I close it, now it doesn't even show up here. And the reason for this is there are many modules within ClubExpress that simply don't apply to certain organizations. So say you don't have volunteers or you don't have collectibles. You can hide them entirely so that not only are they not available, they don't show up on the control panel because they don't pertain to your organization. So I'm going to come back in here, and it shows all the hidden ones go down to the bottom of the list. So it says disabled modules for this tab. So I go to standard member directory, and I'm just going to activate it again. And so I'm going to save that. Now, this is also one of the two ways that you can set coordinators to say, okay, who can administer just this module? So if I want Jenny Cho to be an administrator, now Jenny she'll have a control panel. She will have very limited functionality because she's not an administrator of the site, but she is a coordinator of this module, which means she can administer this module. So that's the way you turn things on and off. This is the way you hide things. You make it active or inactive. We will see that the standard member directory says that it is available to the public and to members. That doesn't seem right. If we go to standard member directory, we need to, because I had disabled it, we want to make this available to members only. So this way it's showing you who can see it. So if I change this to members only, you see where there was a P and an M over here before. I can't quite move this off the screen. If I save this and choose close, now it's showing that it's only available to members. And A would be if it was inactive. Any more questions, Samantha?
I think that covers it for now. Yeah, a lot of people were interested in activating the modules. And just to reiterate, both of these modules are standard modules that are included with your website. So to activate them doesn't cost you a dime. The only thing, as Alan mentioned, that would incur an extra fee would be if you had any extra search fields that you wanted to include that would be covered under custom programming.
Right, and if you had a custom directory, it would show up in the People tab along with your other directories. I think we've run up against the clock, so I thank you all for coming, and we will see you in the next webinar, which will be 2 weeks from today, where Samantha will be discussing ClubExpress for treasurers. Thank you, everyone.